Hey, man, you guys are extremely concerned with the issue of instrument timbre. Research the subject. From the beginning, you have always been very focused on this. So, I wanted to know the following, man. How much do you think the musician is responsible for the final result? Versus the issue of the equipment.
I think the musician is 100% responsible. We say that there's a part where the equipment, and the equipment obviously is a variable, right? Within that. But you take Vini Rosa playing, Vini, our friend. He will plug into any equipment and he will get an amazing sound. And it doesn't matter if it's a GT3 voice, a Kemper, or a tube amp. He always gets his sound, and he has always been a reference for me. I have never said this so openly. It's not because he's here today, but Vinny has always been a very, very present reference because he played with Claudinho Bochecha at the time we formed a band with members from Claudinho Bochecha's band from Niterói, which included Fabio, Lessa, and Wallace. Lessa has been close with you for years. That's right. And then Vinny played with them, and then we formed a band in Niterói. And I became the guitarist, and obviously, Vinny was always a topic, always a bit of memories and comments, because Vinny has always been that guy with the tone. And so from that point, I even started chasing some guitars of the same brand, because I saw Vinny playing and thought, man, I want to see that too.
Which guitar example?
Tom Anderson.
And you first saw it with him.
Yes, and the Thor 4. Tom Anderson was with the Thor 4 and with Vinny. But like Vinny left a big impression on me because everything I saw him doing with Anna Carolina and with anyone he played with was very remarkable. And he, man, used Bogner, right? That later I developed a relationship, a partnership with Bogner abroad, but I ended up following that path a bit because I saw Vinny playing and wanted to play like him. That's a fact. There are three guitarists I mentioned briefly last time who are very big influences, and I needed to address this because Vinny is one, Torquato is another, and Uncle Kiko from Ropa Nova, right, who is an influence. Obviously, I think for all guitarists, but these are three guys who have a very, very personal, very distinctive tone. And it's their touch, you know. You see Torquato playing on any equipment, it's the same Torquato sound. You see Vinny, it's the same sound. You see Uncle Kiko playing with any guitar, it's the same sound. So there, I understood that the real variable, the main one, was the guitarist. Claudinho guitarra, I mean Pepeu. You see that the guy plugs into anything and it sounds like him, yes. So this, I understood there that the equipment was important. I'm curious, I like to tinker, I like to explore, but I realized that either I played better, and thus I would sound better. With any equipment, I would understand the mathematics of the equipment, the way to use it, or man, I would be a mediocre guitarist with any equipment.
But what changed in your mind in this pursuit of the tone issue? You said you had to play better, but sometimes you can focus on playing better. For example, a jazz guitarist plugs a guitar directly into the amp, closes the tone, and that's it. He doesn't have much concern about trying to understand the peripherals, tinkering with a forum, a clean sound, a drive. So, what changed for you, and what did you start to pursue?
Actually, that was a great example you gave about jazz because I studied with Nelson Faria, who is another one that takes any guitar and makes it sound like him. And I remember he did exactly that. He had a Telecaster with a humbucker and he used a semi-acoustic, a Black Guild. I remember this because I was a student. I said, man, that Black Guild is wonderful, semi-acoustic, kind of like a 335. And I saw that he would plug into any amp at the college as I studied music and was his student. And it was the same sound. And so I only understood that we basically had three different possible sounds, which was a clean sound. That could be used for jazz, pop, funk, in short, for something more guitar-based, rhythm, or for solos. More clean, a crunch sound, which is a slightly distorted sound that you take to your vibe, more towards blues, more towards classic rock, and the heavy distortion, which can range from a heavy metal distortion or thrash metal, which increases the level of heaviness, to a rock, heavy hard rock distortion, and the fuzz, which I consider a separate category that few guitarists understand and use, which sounds so good. So I divided it into four sounds, you know. Mateus, I had a clean sound, a slightly twisted sound, a well distorted sound, and a fuzz effect was something else. for me, these sounds are the natural states of the guitar. You plug into any old amplifier. Let's look at the Marshall Plexi. You have all these sounds in it, not a Fender that you open up, it starts distorting, not a Vox, you open it up, it starts distorting. So, they are different categories in terms of flavors and equalizations. But the principle is the same. You know, you play harder, it distorts more, it distorts more, it distorts less. You start learning to work with this relationship. And I took these 4 parameters and started applying them to everything I had. To all the equipment, whether they were pedal boards or tube amplifiers, I still think that playing with a tube amplifier by your side, you play better, but it's a reaction from being there with the amplifier. It's blowing air at you. You are feeling that transient happening. Stop. It's very difficult to capture that in other places. But the final sound result, when you take it, mic it, go to the studio and listen on the studio monitors, it's very different from being right next to it. So I said, whoa, I need to get used to the feeling of not having an amplifier near me, especially when I'm recording. Because you go enter a room next to the amplifier, put on headphones, you're not hearing the sound properly, you're hearing the bass from the amplifier, you're hearing the amplifier's leakage in the headphones. And I said, I need to learn to listen to the sound I want to hear on the studio monitors. And that facilitated my transition to pedal boards, simulators, and profilers. Because you see, I was always searching for the sound of the amps. But I had the amps,
The differences, right? There's no way around that, right?
exactly.